Good morning. Happy Tuesday, and welcome into the number one Group of Five football podcast in the world. We are the Group of Five guys. Our mission is to be the voice for the Group of Five football programs, the voice that the mainstream sports media absolutely refuses to be. We need your help to do that. We need you to follow us on all the social platforms at Group of Five guys. Go to YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your best podcasts. Subscribe to the channel. Leave a 5-star rating and a review. Most important thing you can do, tell your family and friends all about us. Or you can go to group-of-5guys.com and get you some Group of Five Guys merch. On this post-Labor Day episode, we're going to find out if Jeff Murphy here is still in the green from his trip to Vegas. I'll give you a rundown on my, seems like pretty much annual trip to Statesboro. We're going to talk about the rest of these week one games because we had some struggles across the country. So we are definitely going to talk about that, talk about plenty more, and preview our upcoming trip to San Marcos, Texas. Hope you enjoy the show. Have you had it from somebody born and raised in Lafayette, Louisiana?
Pratt has got to show up and play, and boy did he. 394 yards, 4 touchdowns, 48 rushing yards on the ground, and another touchdown.
Projected getting drafted between the first and third round, that's incredible. The wide receivers are absolutely stacked for the Group of Five.
Yeah, I really appreciate you do for the Group of Five programs, and I think it's great. I think we should get more of this, but you guys are on the forefront of this. And
so I'm thankful for this. I'm glad that you're talking about the Group of Five because I think they get overlooked.
But it's a ton of fun to watch a guy go to the NFL from a Nevada or a Colorado State or a Middle Tennessee or an App State, and fans follow that kid.
Well, Jeff, on this Tuesday morning after a long weekend, I got to tell you, you look bright-eyed, you look bushy-tailed, you look ready to go. Is that because you won some money in Vegas, or is that because you've had so many cups of Deca Great coffee this morning?
I think it's a little bit of both.
Really?
No, I think anytime you leave Vegas and you don't have a huge hole in your pocket, I think that's a win. So, first night, go up, a little bit, feeling good. Second night, lose that money and go down a little bit in the hole. And then night 3, just the golden nugget in old Vegas, come back and basically leave in Vegas, break it even. So that's a huge win. And
that's not bad.
Also left on Sunday, and most of the other guys left on Monday. I don't know how they went an extra day. But now we're back, man. Back, had a great time, picked up some new Raiders merch to the Raider image down there, and was hoping I could see my good friend Barry Odom, but he was down in Houston really taking it to the Cougars down there.
Yeah, well, thank God for Barry Odom and the Rebels, because my God, Jeff, we didn't have a good showing. We did not have a good showing. I will be the first one to admit it. We did not give any kind of evidence over this weekend that we belong in this conversation. I'm sorry we didn't do it.
Yeah, it was rough. But, I think a lot of that is, you got week 1, working out a lot of kinks, not trying to make some excuses, but a couple teams that we definitely thought should hang around and compete didn't. But, it's just the way cookie crumbles.
And I'll say this too. Again, I'll crank up the excuse machine, because I know if it went the other way around, the P4 people would be cranking up the excuse machine. I mean, here's the deal. We sent mostly middle of the road to bottom half Group of 5 teams to all of them on the road. I think all of them except for Hawaii were on the road, and damn, Hawaii almost got it done. That's something too. As I was watching and flipping through games and driving home from Statesboro, listening to games, that's a stat that nobody ever brings up, huh? That they bring up the record and say, they're all on the road. I mean, every time.
Of course.
Very, very rarely do you get a home and home. And then you also, I know there's certainly no moral victories, but Nobody's going to remember that Old Dominion should have beat South Carolina this weekend. Nobody's going to remember that Hawaii had UCLA beat, you know, and so it's unfortunate, but you got to get it done. And I'll say this too, man, across the country, Group of Five, Power Five, SEC. I mean, everybody struggled. It was a bad, there was some bad football, I thought, and we know that happens with week one, and that's why you see teams try to schedule an FCS opponent, or you see these money games that are played, and it just was a sloppy game. It was a really sloppy game. But before we go any further, Jeff, I do want to talk about our favorite partner, Deca Gray Coffee Company. I've drank a lot over the last. I mean, I'm a caffeine guy, and I came back from Statesboro. I woke up feeling a little under the weather. Kids both got some sniffles going on right now, so I think I'm fighting that off. But I was tired. But I had a lot of stuff to do, a lot of things to catch up on. So what do you do, Jeff? But you make you a pot of coffee, and you get to work.
Yeah.
And with that, I go, Deca Gray Coffee Company. I did have the game day dark roast on Saturday on my way to Statesboro. Made a pot, put it in my little Yeti cup. That's a good coffee now.
No, it's great, and I really enjoy the dark roast. Really get you going. But yeah, go check out Deca Gray Coffee Company. Use our promo code GOFG. Not only do you get free shipping, but you get 10% off your entire purchase, and it lets them know, how many customers we're pushing to them. So it helps with the tracking of that sort of thing. But absolutely phenomenal. I start my morning off every single morning with it. Great flavors. It's roast to order, so you're not getting coffee from the grocery store that's been sitting around in a warehouse and sits on the grocery store until you buy it. So as soon as you order it, they roast it fresh. It's shipped out in a couple days. You really can't beat it. If you like coffee, just give them a try. And you don't have to do the game day dark roast if you're not a dark roast type of person. They have medium, they have light, nice breakfast blend on there. A lot of different options. Just go check them out.
Well, I was going to say, Jeff, they also have all the holiday options on there. As fall starts, look, it's football season for us, but for most of our wives, it's pumpkin patch season coming up, Jeff.
Sure is.
So you want to go get you the pumpkin spice, the peppermint, Christmas, which, see, I've never been a fan of things like that. I think it tastes like a Christmas tree, and I don't really particularly enjoy that taste. But my wife loves it. I'll tell you. So we're going to get on that. I got three bags of coffee right now. So I gotta dwindle that down just a little bit before I start ordering some more. But shout out to Deca Gray Coffee Company. Check the website, use our code GOFG. Well, this week, guys, is going to be a little different. Obviously, today on day one, we're here on a Tuesday due to the Labor Day holiday. Yesterday, we'll be back tomorrow. We also are catching up with UNLV head coach Barry Odom this week, fresh off of the first Group of Five over Power Four win of the first and only of the season. So really fired up to get with Coach Odom. Expectations are high in Vegas. And then, of course, Friday, we'll be traveling out to San Marcos. So Friday morning, we probably won't have a show. I know my flight is out of Atlanta at like 8 a.m., so probably pushing it to try to hit a show before then. But we are going to do our damnedest to do a live show on Friday afternoon from campus at Texas State. Then we will be floating the San Marcos River Friday at 4 p.m. if you're a Texas State, or I suppose the UTSA folks are invited. I don't know. We are going as guests, so I don't want to just invite you. I'm not one of those guys, Jeff, that invites somebody to another person's party. I've done it, and it's very uncomfortable if they don't like the guy. But that'll be Friday, linking up at Sewell Park. Going to float for about 45 minutes from what I gather. And then I believe there's a little pub right there on the river that we're going to hang out at for a little bit. And then Saturday, I mean, I'm talking about we got a chance. Everything's bigger in Texas, Jeff, and this tailgate we're about to experience appears like it's going to be a big damn deal.
Yeah, I couldn't be more excited for it. I don't really know what to expect, but tailgate in Texas sounds like a great time, and the weather's shaping up pretty nice. I don't want to jinx anything because I know how hot Texas can get. But yeah, come hang out with us at some point throughout the weekend. We want to meet as many people as possible. get as much content, check out as many places as we can. So if you got recommendations, throw them in there. In the live chat, Joey Gibson is in there. I believe he's a UTSA Roadrunner fan.
It appears.
But we want to meet as many people as possible and just hang out and really check out. You know, we were there in San Marcos 2 years ago, I believe, in the summer, but did not catch a game. So this atmosphere is going to be electric, man. I'm really, really excited for this game. This is a premier Group of 5 matchup, and anybody that thinks otherwise just doesn't know football.
Yeah. Well, and to be frank, Jeff, both of these teams underwhelmed this weekend, and I about canceled the damn trip. I mean, we can't have, you know,
can I pose a theory? I have a theory to pose. This is my theory.
Pose a theory.
This is my theory. I think both of these teams had a little bit of, I don't want to show my hand, so to speak, playing the game within the game, and maybe played it a little tighter than they wanted to, especially offensively. Like, I'm not going to show everything that I'm going to run, keep it very vanilla. And credit to those teams, playing tough and hanging around. I mean, people forget, like, it's a football game, man. You go out there, these are real human beings. If you don't think these kids on the FCS level are fired up and want to make a statement for their team and their career, like, they're giving it everything they got. So I don't want to get too caught up in, week 1 performances, but you better believe they're going to be ready for this one in San Marcos.
Yeah, and I'll say this too, with a lot of these games, I mean, you looked at, Central Arkansas hanging around, almost beat Arkansas State. You looked at Tennessee Tech, big comeback against Middle, almost beat Middle. And a lot of them were, the Middle game in particular, where they were up 21 to 2 or something like that. They were up big. You did have on the East Coast and in the Southeast, you had a ton of weather delays and postponements. I don't know if that's the right word there, but a lot of stuff like that, a lot of distractions. And then on top of it, you have, the week 1, and then you can look across the board. I'm sure we're going to get some people that are pointing to games like that and saying, oh, look, see, Group of 5 is closer to FCS than it is Power 5. But then you can go look at Colorado, struggling with North Dakota State. You can look at Florida State, who now is 0-2 and has looked very bad. And, I don't know if this is an overreaction or not, Jeff, but I think Memphis has no choice now. Before, that was going to look like a really nice win for Memphis. Now it's looking like that could be a bad loss.
Yeah, they're going to have to show up and show out for that game. Florida State does not look good, and they can't figure it out at the quarterback position either. And we talked about it enough last week on how the ratings are just bad, and it was a recruiting miss as far as DJ. Now he's getting multiple opportunities at it, but I'm pretty sure, I don't know if they're going to move on from him, but he struggled last night. But I couldn't watch it because DirecTV, I want to shout out DirecTV. Thank you so much for getting in a dispute with Disney, who controls ESPN, Hulu, all these other companies, and I have no ESPN channels right now. Really great.
Well, Jeff,
although I pay for ESPN Plus, I
still can't do it.
Still can't watch ESPN.
Yeah.
So shout out to the conglomerates of the world, really just holding us college football fans to the fire. Wait, so am I supposed to buy YouTube TV now? Is that the route that I have to go?
Well, Jeff, and I have been a DirecTV customer for my entire adult life. And
Same here. I
love DirecTV. I think I really do. And I have been anti these streaming services because I'm anti paying for multiple. And that's kind of that's my thoughts is I could pay for YouTube TV, but then I got to get Peacock. Then I got to go get Hulu if I want to watch everything I want to watch. So you're better off. I've always felt like you're better off getting cable. I have a little bit of I have my spidey senses were up yesterday, Jeff, because the dispute happened, right? And here's the thing. Disney holds the cards for this because they know that it's college football season and people will almost pay whatever to do it. I found it very interesting that almost immediately after the contract ran out, you saw the SEC commissioner, Greg Sankey, publicly tweet about how great YouTube TV is. Then you saw Kirk Herbstreit do the same thing. And you saw other ESPN personalities do the same thing. So, see, I sense collusion here, Jeff. I sense Disney is just trying to strong arm DirecTV. And DirecTV is essentially called their bluff. And unfortunately for them, the consumer is mad at DirecTV. But,
It stinks. It all stinks.
Disney's got the cards. And here's the other part of it too is YouTube TV's prices have gone up an insane amount in the past couple of years. And to think they're not going to continue to do so is, and I've also saw where they have that, everybody's highlighting that multi-screen view where you can watch multiple games at once, but apparently you can't even pick which games. Like you can pick one game and it just gives you the other three. I don't know if that's accurate or not. If somebody's in the chat that has that information, but yeah, I'm in the same boat, man. And I don't know. And then, ESPNU, I was down there in Statesboro and apparently you couldn't, that game was coming in and out on ESPNU before the contract was out on every cable network. So, I mean, you wouldn't see that happen somewhere else, Jeff, but anyway,
we got a jam-packed show we got to get to, Sprouse. We got some people in the live chat. If you're watching or listening on Facebook or Twitter, hop over to YouTube. We got a live chat going over there. Some good guys in there. Matt Hardigan is in there. Joey Gibson, Jabari Jones, Adai Traver, Mr. Wandsworld is in there again. So go check it out. Just some good back and forth with the fans. YouTube live chat.
Well, Jeff, I'm going to hit you with a immediate reaction, one reaction from all 5 conferences, and you tell me if this is an overreaction or it's just a good smart reaction. Is that fair?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. With the Miami loss to Northwestern, the MAC playoff chances are over.
I'm going to go I don't think they're over by any stretch of the imagination. I think it's definitely not a great showing for Miami's sake. I thought, kind of per usual, defense looked good. Definitely going to improve and get better, but, holding Northwestern, to, what was it, 16 points, I believe, or something like that. That's a good showing. Offensively, not great. I think they had like 42 rushing yards on the ground. And whenever you have rushing yards, barely any rushing yards, it just puts that much more pressure on your quarterback. And I don't know if Gabbert has the tools enough around him to overcome that week in and week out. Now, again, it's week 1. I think they'll improve. I think they'll get better. They got a bye week this week before they play Cincinnati. But I thought offensively they were going to look better, and they didn't. So that worries me. But it's not just Miami in this conference, boys and girls. Give me the Central Michigan Chippewas.
Ooh-wee.
I thought looked really, really good. And again, I don't want to overact the other way, but they did exactly what you're supposed to do against a team like this. Shout out Joey Labus, 18 of 24, 342 yards and 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. They returned a punt, a kick, and an interception back for a touchdown. Complete domination start to finish for them. And I like their schedule, the way it shapes up. Now, their last 5 games is the toughest teams in the MAC. But if you can keep it going, really get hot, you play Illinois. I think that's a very winnable Power 4 matchup. You never know. If they run the table the rest of the way in the MAC, I'm not counting the Chippewas out now.
Yeah. Well, I think that's probably the true statement is now for Miami. Now you have Cincinnati and Notre Dame left and the conference, and now you've got to win them all. You can't, we were saying preseason that they've got to split Notre Dame and Northwestern, and now there ain't no splits. You got to beat everybody, and that's unfortunate. There was people, we put out our poll yesterday, and Miami dropped off, and I don't like, one thing I don't like is when people think that just because they almost beat a P4 that somehow, and like Northwestern is not one of the good ones. You go and you almost beat Michigan or you almost beat Ohio State, you get some respect for that. You go up in our poll probably, but you don't almost beat a mediocre team. And again, we don't know yet. Maybe Northwestern shows up and wins 8 games in the Big Ten. Maybe. Doubt it, but maybe. And so that was a little bit disappointing. And again, it's all offensively for them. And we saw how bad they were last year without Gabbert. Northwestern, historically, that's your old school physical team, right? Good, they run the ball, they play decent defense. That's what they do. But wish we would have seen more out of the offense from Miami. In the Mountain West, Jeff, overreaction or not, UNLV is now the heavy favorite in the Mountain West.
I don't think that's that much of an overreaction. I had, in our conference preview to win the Mountain West.
Yeah.
But, this is what you want to see. Now, as Northwestern wasn't the top of the Big Ten, Houston's not the top of the Big 12,
No.
but it's for us, or at least for me, when I do my rankings on Sunday, like I go back and I try and watch as many games as possible. And you can't do it all, but I picked the ones that I thought were important. I really try and dive into those. And it was domination on both sides of the ball, every phase of the game against a Big 12 team. That's what you want to see. That's why I think UNLV is a heavy favorite. Now, that's not to say that, I wasn't very high on Boise. I think Boise's, you can't not have the conversation with the day that Genty had, because dude is incredible. And I know you'll talk about him. You got to see him live in color on Saturday, but you can't look at this game and say that UNLV is not a favorite. And this was honestly not their best game, not their best performance.
Yeah.
I thought they left a lot on the table. Sluka is that guy. He only had 71 yards passing, but had 2 TDs, 59 yards on the ground. But you're not going to keep Ricky White to 2 catches for 11 yards. You're just not. So they were able to do this without some of their star guys really, having great games. But shout out to Jacob DeJesus, two touchdown catches. Jalen Catalon, 2 interceptions and 1 taken back for a touchdown. So I don't think that's that much of an overreaction.
Well, that's what did it for me for them, is they did that defensively. And that was, we know about their offense and what it can be. But the fact that, they scored on defense, all phases of the game, they got it done in that game. In the Sun Belt, Jeff, the Chanticleers of Coastal Carolina are back and better than ever.
Back and better than ever. I want to see more from Coastal, and we'll see if Jacksonville State is as good or as bad as that game, or as bad as that game looked, or as good as we thought they were going to. Where we need more of a sample size from them. But let me say, I went back and because I was on the plane when this game was going on, and my thing, my service was going in and out. I think the quarterback question's answered. That was one of our questions going into that game. Ethan Vasco is that dude. And if you go back and watch, he did have an interception, but he had 2 passing touchdowns and a rushing touchdown. But he was sharp and he looked poised in the pocket. And the kid, we forget, he was a Power 4 recruit, and comes back and looked very, very good. Defense looked very good. Their secondary looked great, had 2 interceptions, had 4 forced fumbles on the day. It's a great sign for Coastal. Are they back? I need to see more, but they're on the way.
A lot of people are saying Grayson McCall was holding them back. That's what the word on the streets is, Jeff.
Hey,
well, he threw it about 50 times the other night.
He didn't look
for NC State.
He didn't look good.
No, he didn't. It's weird. You almost, we talk about it. It seems like every show, but this going to a new system and a new team every year, I think that's part of why we saw so much sloppiness in week 1. All the teams are new. Every roster has got 40 guys different on it. In the American, Jeff, here's one for you, and this is one of the teams that I thought was the most impressive, because I think they beat a very good team, and they looked pretty good doing it. Is North Texas a real contender in the American Conference?
Yes. Yeah, they are. And this is one that we talked about them a little bit on our conference preview, but didn't talk about him enough. And Chandler Morris was the biggest question mark for me. Had been injured with his time, his time at TCU, but This is a game that I went back and watched almost every snap. He looked great. He looked really, really good. Athletic enough and ran that offense to almost perfection. And you gotta give credit to Eric Morris. They've been rated in the portal the last couple years, and he just seems to be able to get guys to come in, reload that offense, and is constantly putting up numbers. Morris had 415 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, 2 more rushing touchdowns. Damon Moore Jr., have a day, son. 12
What a
catches, 230 yards, 2 TDs. And they just got weapons. They got weapons on the outside, and Ragsdale in the running back position. We talked about Ward, DT Sheffield. Kid, watch him. Every time he got the ball in his hand, it was an explosive play. So I just think that they have tons of weapons around Morris. And if he can just continue to do that, be efficient, he looked calm, sliding around the pocket, running around, throwing on the run. Like, he looked really good. And that was the key. That's what they needed. If he can stay healthy, I think sky's the limit for this team. And like you said, it was against a very good South Alabama team that put up a lot of points on this defense. So that worries me just a little bit because when you are able to score so fast, sometimes your defense is on the field too much. But that's a good problem to have. And beating Gio Lopez and that Jaguar offense was not easy because that kid's special too now. He had a hell of a game. But I think they're for real. I think North Texas is for real.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Gio Lopez looked the part too. South Alabama offensively looked really good, and their defense has been their strong suit. So they'll have to tighten up a little bit on that. Last one, Jeff. This is a fun one. Conference USA is worse than last year.
I think it's too early to tell. Collectively as a conference, right? So the Liberty faithful started freaking out when Coastal smacked Jacksonville State on Thursday night. And you just got to wait, guys. Like, we don't know yet. We don't know how good Coastal is. Now, it worries me that Jacksonville State doesn't have a quarterback at all, it seems like. They're going to have to figure that out. But just because the team was good last year, it doesn't necessarily mean that the next year they're going to be as good, because they lost a ton of pieces on defense. And that was, one of the things keeping them in games. So it's like from year to year, it's so hard to build a program in this day of NIL and transfer portal. So we just got to wait and see. I thought UTEP played Nebraska fairly tough in the beginning, got away, at the end, but shout out to Sam Houston State. They beat a good Rice team.
Mm-hmm.
I was high on Rice. I still am. But you go on the road and beat Rice. That's a big win for Sam Houston. So shout out to them. And I thought Kennesaw State State played UTSA very well, especially early on. Now they got to be able to throw the ball a little bit better. That worried me, but they run this kind of gun triple option type deal that I think will give a few teams in this conference fits. So I think between Kennesaw State will be decent. It seems like Sam Houston's better. We got to get more of a sample size on MTSU and some of these other teams. And honestly, like, Liberty didn't look as crisp as everybody
That's what
thought.
I was going to say.
So, like, guys, all across the board in Conference USA, let's chill out. It's week 1. Let's not go too crazy, and let's just see how things shake out.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, Jeff, that, for the Liberty faithful freaking out, y'all better worry about having a better showing against the Campbell Camels before you start worrying about everybody else. And Jamie Chadwell said some things about that. And so, again, for Liberty, we said this preseason, you can't, I know that, 41-24, that's fine. You're fine on that, but you can't have these 3, 4, 7-point games across the board in this. If this conference is as bad as the Liberty fans seem to think that it is, they can't struggle with any of the teams if that's the case. But anyway, Jeff, I got to tell you about my trip down to the Statesboro. Heck of a time once again. We're very fortunate we get taken care of down there. Finally, after I think 3 years, we did a koozie giveaway one time. Finally got Taylor Hinson his koozie. Shout out to him and their tailgate. We got a bunch of koozies. The Gata Talk fellas were over there hanging out. Water hose drinkers were over there hanging out. Got to see Zach and Haley. Zach and Haley, by the way, are like two of the very first people. Zach had to introduce his wife to us, but some of the very first people in Statesboro that supported us and kind of showed us around a little bit. Got us on with the dirty turtle shots and some of the going over there to Nats Landing and all that stuff. So shout out to them. And then of course you got to shout out Lenny B. Once again By the way, Lenny B is down 70 pounds.
Good for him. Atta
He
boy.
lost a ton of weight. I saw him in the bathroom. I didn't even recognize the guy. Yeah. I said, damn, dude, you lost a ton of weight. And he did 70 pounds since like January or February. So shout out to Lenny B, but shout out to that whole tailgate scene. I always have a great time down there. They got the Hale Southern vodka. They have down there, so I got to sample that a little bit. But on the field, I want to say this. First, let me talk Georgia Southern. I think J.C. French is the guy now. He early, he was kind of out of rhythm, missed a few throws, had a lot of pressure. But once that game got going, I mean, that guy's athletic enough. He scored a rushing touchdown. He made some big time throws late in the game. And I think where they need help is defensively. Now, again, sample size, right? Because you take away Ashton Genty and they win that game about 30-7, So, but they couldn't stop the run at all. Boise, it seemed like every time Georgia Southern you thought was gonna win it, honestly, Boise would go right down the field. It's like Boise, either they were trying to get too cute or Georgia Southern got too comfortable. But every time Georgia Southern either took the lead or got close and needed a big stop to put the game away, Boise went right down the field. Big play, or they would run the ball. But I thought J.C. French did well. Honestly, was kind of, I don't want to use the word disappointed, but Tyler Fromm didn't really get much action at all. Didn't get much targets at all when they had him in. He was blocking most of the time. We thought he was going to be a big help for them in the red zone, but we'll see. Again, it could be matchups, could be whatever they thought why he didn't get it. But hey, I mean, their offense, they scored a ton of points, so it's not like they were missing out this week. Now, Boise, I texted you guys before the game. We saw them last year at Memphis, and I remember us talking about it. We were saying, they don't look different, right, than the rest of the team. So this was last year now, and Memphis we thought did. Memphis came out and damn, they got some dudes on that squad. Now, to me, I know it's a lot of the same guys. To me, Boise did look different on Saturday. I mean, I was sitting there with some of the Georgia Southern alum or media type folks, and we were just looking at Boise. We were just like, damn, they got some dudes, man. They definitely got some dudes. And you guys saw the picture. I got the picture of Genty. The gluten calf check was passed with flying colors. I mean, absolutely flying colors. I'll say this. They got a single-digit defensive tackle, number 9, looks the part. And Ahmed Hassani, now that guy, he got some stuff going on in his head. He got some demons he might be fighting, because before the game, he was talking to himself. I thought he was talking to me, and he was talking to himself. He was just walking back and forth saying, I'm a bad MFer to himself, just like over and over, smacking himself in the head. And when they went down to do, during warmups, O-line, D-line stuff, I mean, he was going hard, dude. He was going hard on that poor right tackle. So they definitely got some dudes. And then on that offensive line, they're big, Cage Casey and those guys, they got a big group up front. And then, I mean, I can't say enough about Ashton Genty. I mean, to witness what I witnessed in person.
That's special.
This is the thing about it. First of all, he hit the lanes he gets from his offensive line. He's not making any contact until 4 or 5 yards up the field. And at that point, and I'm talking truck lanes, and at that point, it's him one-on-one with a linebacker or a safety. And I don't think there was one play that he was brought down by the first guy. I mean, I would love to see, yards after contact or broken tackle stats on that game. And he's built, I mean, the guy's like prototype. He's so low to the ground, and I'm not even joking. He's so thick in the trunk, like, and his legs are so thick. so many plays where he's moving laterally. He gets hit, and it looks like, anybody else, their legs fly up in the air and they go down. He's so good laterally that he would get hit and he wouldn't even come off balance at all. Like he just would, like, his legs would kick out. He'd plant a foot just right back up the field. And on multiple occasions, I was texting you guys. I was like, guys, 4th and 1. And I don't know why, but Genty didn't get the ball right there. And then they would finally give it to him and he would run right through a linebacker into the end zone. I mean, 6 touchdowns. And I mean, there were some big runs, but there was also some just regular, 7, 8, 10-yard runs.
Yeah, regular.
And I'm going to say this too. Huh?
You're getting regular 7, 8-yard runs too. That's,
dude. Listen,
I mean, you're not going to lose.
I'm sitting down there in the end zone in the cabanas there in Statesboro, and I'm talking to all these people, and I'm getting mad. I know I'm in Statesboro, I'm in Georgia Southern Territory, but I'm getting mad that they're just not giving them the ball. I'm like, all right, guys, it's 1st and goal from the 3, and we're running a trick play to a defensive tackle. What are we doing? And then they finally, on 3rd down, they hand it to Genty, and he just walks into the end zone. I'm just like, I was like, guys, this is not that complicated. I'll say this. The guy they got to come in and spell Genty, though, 17 years old, true freshman, Sire Gaines. He gonna be special too. A lot more shifty and fast than Genty is, and that could be because he's 17 years old and he's still kind of a skinny kid. But he's pretty damn good too. I mean, he had some big runs himself. And a couple times it was his big run that got him down to the goal line, and Genty had to punch it in. And then last thing is Madsen. Madsen I thought played okay. He, like I said, when they needed a big throw, he made a big throw, but it wasn't special. And then there was times when I thought they might. I'm glad they didn't, but there was times that I thought they might try something else, just as they were starting to struggle a little bit. But yeah, I thought from the eye test before the game, they definitely pass it. And I think the heat got to him a little bit. I mean, hell, Georgia Southern had a kid cramp on like the 2nd play of the game. It was so damn hot. And I was disappointed in the student section because they bounced at halftime. And they were down with 28-9, I think, at the half. But they made a big difference, I thought, and they would have made a big difference had they stayed. Now, granted, it was hot. And that's my other gripe is these TV games. I mean, that game was over 4 hours long, man.
Yeah.
I think you want people to stay, and I think that's part of the problem we have is fans. I mean, dude, if you got kids or you've been drinking all day, I mean, you're out there in that sun. I mean, it was miserable hot. I mean, we had to keep going into the tent, into the fan. I mean, running out of water down there. I mean, it's like, I don't know. They got to do something to speed these up, but that's TV for you. That's these TV networks, Jeff.
ESPN, DirecTV, always appreciate you. And the last thing I'll say about Madsen and the quarterback situation is, hell, you got a running back doing that. It doesn't matter. Just at that point, let him go and just don't turn the ball over. So, but I'm with you. I'm glad they didn't try and put Nelson in. I think that's a statement by Danielson in a tight game when you could have. You stuck with Madsen, and I think that was a good choice.
Yeah. But overall, man, I think Georgia Southern is going to be just fine. I mean, some of their fans were complaining, and it's like, look, Boise is one of the 3 or 4 favorites to make the playoff, and you had them on the ropes on a couple different occasions. So I think they'll be just fine. They got to figure some things out defensively. Well, let's roll through some of these games here in the interest of time. In Conference USA, I mean, just not a very good showing out of Conference USA. Western Kentucky, look, you give them a pass. A lot of teams are going to get beat 63-0 at Alabama.
I don't like that they were shut out. That's the only thing
I don't like it either.
That bothers me when you have that type of offense that throws it all over the field. You don't get on, and Finley didn't have a good day. So, we'll see how they look this week. But I don't like that. That's not a good start.
FIU 7, Indiana 31. That game was close for a little bit. I think it's better than FIU would have done in the past. And if Signetti is the guru that he himself claims he is, then Indiana's probably going to be a little bit better than they've been.
Well, we talked about FIU's defense having some really key players that looked apart. I think holding Indiana to 31 points I think that's reasonable. I think that's a good showing for the defense. You just wish the offense would have showed up more, but
Yeah.
we'll see how they're going to be better moving forward. I
Yeah.
really think that.
They got to find, and this is going to be the same for a lot of these teams. They got to find something in the run game, and you can't rely so heavily on your quarterback. UTEP, you mentioned it earlier. They played okay against Nebraska. I mean, they played them tight early.
Yeah, a lot of positive things for the Miners.
Yeah, and you talked about Kennesaw State. I mean, look again, UTSA is probably, from the national media, they're probably about 5 or 6 as like the favorite to make the playoff. And Kennesaw State went into San Antonio into a hostile environment and played well, played them tough, man.
Yeah, people don't go into the Alamo Dome and win very often. So the fact that it was that close, and if you go back and watch that game, UTSA's defense is really good, and especially against the run, and that's what Kennesaw State does best. So it didn't play in their favor there, but I think that's a respectable game with a very, very good Roadrunner team. And shout out to Owen McCown. He's going to be real now. He's a good player. He made a few mistakes, but overall, I thought he had a very clean game. He's a lot more athletic than I thought. So I think that's a good sign for them.
Yeah. And then we talked about Liberty. I mean, look, Liberty on defense they've got to be better than that. They just do. You have different aspirations than everybody else in this conference. So you have to dominate. Week in and week out, you have to do it. 24 points to the Fighting Camels of Campbell.
Yeah.
Ain't gonna look good.
Offense did, what we thought they would do. Salter, 242 yards, 2 touchdowns. Cooley ran all over the place. Offensive line, I know, was a concern, but I'm with you. You can't give up 24 points to them. But again, I don't want to overreact too. I don't want to go one way. I'm not going to go the other. So I think Liberty's going to be fine. But in these games, you want to dominate, and I wouldn't say that was complete domination.
The Blue Raiders blew a 3-touchdown lead and then had to drive down the field with 30 seconds left to beat Tennessee Tech, Jeff. I get it. Multiple weather delays. But can't have that. I have some thoughts I'll tell you about off the record, but
family, wife and kids were at this game. They held out for the rain delay. You never like that, and I think it always favors the FCS team. They went on the field, then they had to go back off. They had to go on, go back off. So it's really hard to judge this game. But what I will say from people I know that were watching it, that were there, was offensive D-line's a concern. And that's what
it's been.
That's what it's been. And that's what we talked about. A lot of new pieces on both of those fronts. I think they'll continue to get better, but you gotta figure those two groups out. I think you're fine everywhere else. Those are the two concerns.
Yeah. And then Sam Houston, I mean, they probably had the best performance in the entire conference with a big time win over Rice at Rice. 34-14. We both had Rice as a dark horse in the American. A lot of people have been telling us about Rice, about Dean Connors, about that squad, but Sam Houston goes down there and puts a beating on them.
Yeah, no, that's a big win for them. Shout out to them.
La Tech struggled with Nicholls State, and then New Mexico State needed a last minute drive to beat Southeast Missouri. So, again, like you said, you don't want to overreact. And a lot of this happened in every conference, at every level you want to say, but man, New Mexico State, and you see where Pavia, gets Vanderbilt going down there. Vanderbilt's winning games. So, but
they got the win. That's the most important thing. You got the win, especially those two programs. Mexico State specifically lost pretty much everything from a year ago. So it's good to get the win. You got some momentum, build on it, continue to improve and be ready for week 2.
Yeah. In the American, Temple got beat pretty good in Norman at Oklahoma. That's the trend here, right? You're seeing again, bottom half to lower group of 5 teams going on the road to top half, power 4 opponents. It's going to be tough sledding. Army was pretty dominant. Excuse me. Beating Lehigh 42-7. I want to talk about this FAU Michigan State game a little bit from Friday night. FAU defensively looked pretty damn good. Your question mark for them was Cam Fancher. That kid can run like crazy, but man, he misses a lot of throws, Jeff. I think you could tell me otherwise, but I think what happens with these QBs that are so athletic is they immediately lean on them taking off and running, and they take their eyes off the downfield, and they basically tuck it and run because they're confident in that. And I think that's what it is. I think he's not confident in throwing it. Man, he missed some open throws that would have allowed for FAU to score some more points, but he can run it, man.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing that worries me with Fancher is he gets out of the pocket too quickly, and it works sometimes. So that's his natural, fail safe security blanket. If I'm unsure, I'm going to move around and take off. Well, the problem with that is as soon as you make that decision, now the timing of everything that you just had goes away. And now you're trying to make plays off schedule. Now receivers are trying to get to their scramble drill responsibilities. And if he would just sit in the pocket, step up, climb in the pocket a little bit more, and have your eyes and your brain downfield, then you can really throw that, 16-yard comeback to the outside or hit that dig route that's coming across the middle on time. That's the biggest thing with being a quarterback is like you have to be on time. You have to know what you're seeing, be on time, and then physically deliver the ball. But even if your brain for a second's like, oh, I'm going to run. Okay, no, I'm going to stop. Now you're a second late. So now everything, becomes, crazy and you get nervous and it's like, all right, I'm just going to take off at this point. So yeah, I agree with you. If he would just sit in the pocket, climb up, move around within the pocket, and then if you need to, then get out. But he bails too quickly, and I think it's just his the habit. That's just his habit. You always resort to your habits in pressure situations.
Yeah, and there's one other thing I wanted to talk about on that game because it happened on a Friday, and I didn't want to forget. I don't know if you caught how that game ended, and it turns out it appears that the rule was correct, but that game ended. They had a 4th and 1. FAU had the ball, down 16-10, and Cam Fancher took off with it. Now I don't like this, but he slid on a 4th and 1, right at the marker. Right at the marker. But then he slides, right? So he gives himself up. And then he gets a freaking forearm shiver right to the face, right to the helmet. They throw a flag for a late hit on the quarterback with targeting. And then that defensive player gets mad at that call, so he throws his helmet on the field. So then he gets an unsportsmanlike conduct. So you have 3 15-yard penalties happening on one play on a 4th and 1. They review it. They take away the targeting, but there's still the late hit. But because he slid, it was a dead ball foul. So 4th and 1, dead ball, turnover on downs. Now here's the 2 penalties.
I don't like
that. So they give them. So then they address the 30-yard penalty, but they give Michigan State the ball and they win it. So I did some research. It appears that is the rule, because it's a dead ball foul. But to me, I mean, I don't know if is it only because he slid? That's
basically it, because he's giving himself up at that point, so he's down. It's
but if he runs out of bounds or something,
I just don't like it.
I've seen that before. Almost.
I don't like the rule.
I've seen that.
I think it needs to be changed.
Well, and here's the thing. Although it's a dead ball foul, it's still before the whistle. Like it's still in the play. You know what I mean? Like it's part of the play.
Well, here's the other thing. If it's not 4th down and it's 3rd down, that gets tacked on to that offensive play and you have a 1st down. So why is it different only because
it should be an automatic 1st down? Unsportsmanlike conducts are always an automatic 1st down.
I know.
And he had 3 of them in one play. So, I don't it sucks. And yeah, I think I think the rule, like the helmet throwing, I get that. It's well after the play. They've blown the whistle. They've spotted the ball. Like I get that being after the turnover on downs, but I don't think the late hit. But anyway, um, Navy, most of a lot of these teams did what they were supposed to do. Navy did what they were their defense didn't look great, giving up 21 points to Bucknell. But then North Texas, we already talked about. ECU, South Florida, Memphis, they did what they were supposed to do. Dominant. Go ahead. What do you got?
I went back and watched the ECU game, and I wasn't, I thought Garcia looked better as the game went on, but early on, he threw a bad pick on the first drive, which allowed them to get points early. Their defense looked pretty good, especially up front and in the back end. But if this team wants to be back to where, the Pirate glory days, Garcia is going to have to play better. He's got to be more efficient. They throw a lot of fast screens on the outside, which we're not always a fan of. So I'm happy they got the win. It's a good way to start the season, but they got some tough games coming up, and Garcia is going to have to play lights out for them to win.
Yeah. And then this game, Sunbelt versus American, James Madison went in there and dominated Charlotte. I just got to say, man, Charlotte, they are so undisciplined. I mean, just penalty after penalty after penalty after the whistle, before the whistle. Just on top of they got all these guys supposedly injured. I mean, I'm sorry, but they got to make some changes, man. And I know, we got a chance to be around Biff Poggi a little bit. I like the guy. I think he knows what he's doing, but I think they have a culture problem there right now. And I hate it because them damn students showed up again for them. And at some point they're going to quit. We've seen it at all these every single school on here. Every game on here. We've seen the student section quit when their teams aren't good. And Charlotte ain't been good for the whole time these students been showing up. And so at some point now you're on your, Will Healy. They were mad. They thought it was him. Now you get Biff Poggi. They're already mad at him. I don't know what's got to change, but something's got to change. At some point, right? You're going to bring in all these kids, and you're not winning. Sometimes you can put up with a little bit of the undisciplined and that stuff if you're winning or at least playing well.
Yeah,
but you can't have both. You can't have guys that aren't playing well and they're doing stupid stuff. Just can't do it.
Yeah, I just think offensively they're struggling. They can't push the ball downfield, and until they do that, it's going to be tough sledding. You're going to lean on your ground game a lot. If your defense gives up 30 points, I mean that's tough to overcome if you can't throw the ball.
Yeah, and James Madison, hey, 30-7. I mean that's what they're supposed to do.
Yep, they did their job.
And it was
win in the Chesney era.
Early. Huh?
It's the first win in the Chesney era.
That's right. And early it was a little closer than that. But they put their foot on the gas a little bit. In the MAC, I got to tell you, the MAC, I said that was the overreaction. They probably had the best showing of any conference in the group of five. I mean, again, they all lost, but they all played okay. I mean, look, Western Michigan. Hey, Jalen Buckley, and that Western Michigan squad is a damn good team, and they were out playing Wisconsin for a lot of that game. Akron, there's no disrespect to Akron, but that's where you essentially have the premier Big Ten program against arguably the very bottom of the MAC. So you don't have much there. Kent State played Pitt. They played them okay. That game was a little closer than that final score, 55-24. It was close pretty early. And again, Kent's been pretty bad.
Yeah, I think that's a good sign for Kent State moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. Eastern Michigan, that's a big win. A lot of people thought I think UMass was favored in that game by a few points. So big win for Eastern Michigan. And then Ohio, Alex was real high on Ohio. I'm not sure what I have on the outline here with this score, Jeff, but I think it was 38-22.
Yeah, 38-22.
Syracuse, but Ohio, they did They did pretty good. I mean, they were
Yeah,
weren't
it
they
was
winning that game for a
yeah,
little
it
bit?
was a little bit closer than that final score shows. And Parker Navarro, he played okay. Didn't have a touchdown pass. Did have a pick. But shout out Anthony Tyus, man. 203 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns. They can run the ball, especially in the MAC. They're going to be in a lot of games. If they can get that pass game going, I mean, we talked about it in the pre-show. Their coach has done a great job of reloading and building that program to what it is, and that's what Alex Shear had said. Like he's got faith in him, and that's a good showing against Syracuse.
Yeah, and then we talked about this a little bit earlier with Miami. I mean, they just couldn't do anything offensively at Northwestern. And I got to say this too. I like that little stadium Northwestern's playing in. To me, okay, now here's something for you, Jeff. If I'm a group of 5 team, and I know not everybody's fortunate to have their campus on a lake like that, but I think a cool stadium like that, I mean, I'd go sit there. Hey,
Absolutely.
game's a little boring. Look over at the scenery. You know what I mean? Take a look over there at the lake.
Yeah.
But
I know
anyway,
it's going to be windy at times on that field, but
yeah, and cold, boy. Could you imagine? You imagine a Maction game?
shoot.
Jeez, on a Tuesday night, wind coming across the Great Lakes. Yikes. Northern Illinois, they did what they were supposed to do too.
Yeah, I thought
54-15 over Western Illinois.
I thought they looked dominant. I was really, they kind of solidified themselves for me is going to be a top team in the MAC this year. So shout out to Hammock and those boys.
Yep, I agree with you. In the Mountain West, really disappointed in Colorado State. Very similar to how Western Kentucky was at Bama. Just mad they didn't score. They didn't do anything offensively. Texas is one of the best teams in the country, supposedly. That's always disappointing. You just can't get anything going. And that's, that's the thing that when you have a game like this with both Western Kentucky and Colorado State is you try to go so quick on offense, but then you get down. And we talk about this all the time. You start going too quick and it's not working. You're going too quick into a 3 and out. You look at Florida State last night, right? How many times did they have, first down, incomplete, second down, incomplete, third down, incomplete, punt? I mean, you're not helping your cause at all. And so then you start getting away from what you do well because it's not working. And then you put yourself in a bind. But a little disappointed they didn't score,
Yeah, you want to. I mean, as prolific and as many weapons as that offense has, they should have been able to do something. So maybe that's just a huge credit to Texas. I think Colorado State will be fine in conference, but they're gonna have to clean a few things up. That's for sure.
I thought, Fresno State at 30-10 is a lot worse than that game was because it was 16-10 until late, and then they had a pick six.
End of the third quarter. It was 13-3. So they were right there. Yeah, I had that late pick six that offensive coordinator took credit for, just that they bad call and it wasn't executed right, and Keene made the right read. What worries me a little bit, and it's Michigan. They're going to be big up front, but they weren't able to run the ball. So and like I said, I think they'll be better, especially moving forward, because Michigan is just so big and physical up front on that defensive line. And I thought Keene played well. Obviously the bad pick, but there's not much. Sometimes stuff like that happens. It is what it is. I thought they had a very good showing though against the reigning champs.
Yeah, I agree. We'll see what Michigan ends up doing. Everybody thinks they're going to be not as great, but they're still top 10 as far as everybody's concerned. Don't call them top 10 now, New Mexico going to Arizona. I mean, you can't give up 61 points, but
that offense for Arizona is real though.
Yeah, they are good. But hey, New Mexico putting up 39 points ain't bad.
No,
ain't a bad showing for the Lobos. Wyoming did not perform like we were hoping. They've been just bipolar on the road versus at home. If that game's in Laramie, they probably put on a much better showing, but their defense didn't travel as well as I thought they would have.
Yeah, and they couldn't throw the ball. Zabota, I'm not sure if he's the guy. So he's got to figure it out moving forward, because you can't be so one-dimensional offensively, because it just makes it easy for teams to game plan against you. So if they got to be able to throw the ball up there. They're going to have a running game. They're going to be able to use play action and go up top. They got to have somebody that can complete passes.
Yeah. San Diego State's one of the few that got it done. Marquez Cooper, big game out of him, of course, following or, linking back up with Sean Lewis. So pretty solid performance for San Diego State. Slow start, but they got that thing rolling, and they did what they were supposed to do.
And shout out to the true freshman quarterback, Danny O'Neal, man. Had a good day. We say freshman quarterbacks don't usually do well, and I know it was an FCS opponent, but credit to him for being ready to go and getting the win.
And then we talked about it earlier. Hawaii had this game won, and they nobody's going to remember you losing 16-13, but they had it. They had them won, and they didn't get it done. And that's you're helping the narrative, when stuff like that goes down. I mean, we could have had 3 or 4 Power 4 wins over the weekend, and we only got the one.
A late fumble by Ashlock hurt them, kind of sealed the deal for Hawaii, but he's a damn good player, and I think that was just one of those uncharacteristic-like plays. You can't have it that late, but Hawaii looks a lot better. They look much improved from a year ago.
Yep. We talked about Boise already. Air Force, I mean, not really what you expect out of them against Merrimack. 21-6. I mean, you get the win. Your defense plays pretty well, but you expect to score some more points there. We talked about UNLV quite a bit. I mean, they had across the group of 5. I think them, North Texas, and Sam Houston probably had the best showings as a team. And then Utah State beats Robert Morris 36-14. Utah State, that game wasn't very pretty either, to be quite honest with you. In the interest of time, moving on to the Sun Belt, App State, they were pretty dominant. Slow start. That game was pretty close at halftime, but then they put their foot on the gas late. Got and pulled away from ETSU.
Yeah, Joey Aguilar, he's that dude, man. Over 300 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. They're going to be just fine. They got Clemson up next, right?
Yes, they do. Boy, Clemson, it's crazy. I wonder, I'm not entirely sure which playoff Clemson belongs in, because he lost by 31 points to Georgia, which is crazy because I don't know. Why don't we just go back to the BCS? I think that'd be perfectly fine.
I mean, at this
BCS
point,
got it right most of the time now. Let's not pretend they didn't.
Yeah, less politics.
Go ahead and put Georgia in there. Just give them the trophy at this point. I mean, anyway. Old Dominion, we've been saying this for 5 years now. They play everybody like this. And for some reason, they just don't win many of them.
And if they don't turn the ball over, if Wilson doesn't have 2 picks, they probably win that game. I mean, that's you're cutting down 2 extra possessions for that South Carolina team. Golly, if they can just get a quarterback, man, I think they'd be a damn good team and possibly have a chance of winning the Sun Belt.
Marshall was I liked Marshall. Yes, Stony Brook's not very good, but 45-3. That's what you want to see, man. Those are the kind of games you want to see, just dominant. Arkansas State, I mean, that game went to overtime, didn't it? Central Arkansas?
No, I don't believe so. No. It was tight down to the wire, though.
Don't like that.
No.
Don't like that for a dark horse in the Sun Belt.
Yeah, I don't know what that says. Again, trying not to overreact one way or the other. But you don't want to
Central Arkansas.
They're a good program
with the purple and gray field, aren't they? I think so.
I'm not sure.
Fairly certain that's a purple and gray field, but yeah, they're a decent program.
Yeah.
But Jeff,
I know.
Is Joe Judkins on the live chat right now?
He is not. He is not here on Tuesday.
I can tell you why. First of all, shout out to Nevada. Okay. That's a big time bounce back win. You had SMU on the ropes. I thought that that game against SMU was the best they were going to play. But then they go down there to Troy, 2-time defending Sun Belt champs on the road. Decent crowd for Troy. And Nevada gets that win. And it was, it really wasn't, I don't want to say it wasn't as close as that because Troy had a chance to tie it on the last play of the game, but that's a big time bounce back win with a long way of traveling. And shout out shout out to Jeff Choate, man. I mean, that guy, he's got them playing with some confidence.
He
in Reno.
does. I think they're playing up his personality. I think it's been contagious. And the fact that we're talking about Nevada in a positive light 2 weeks in a row should be very welcoming to Wolfpack fans. And I mean, Brandon Lewis, 2 weeks in a row, you've put back-to-back good games at the quarterback position, and that's what's had them in the game. That's what's had them in both games. And Savion Red, shout out to him, running back, 135 yards on the ground against, I mean, Troy's always had a good defense. So if you're able to run the ball, it just helps everything else out. So good win for the Wolfpack. Hate it for Trojan fans. A lot of season left, though. Don't, you know.
Yeah. Well, and Goose Crowder, he played okay. He did fine in his first start there. Nothing special, but it wasn't, could have been a lot worse for Troy. Southern Miss gets shut out at Kentucky. That was another one that had a bunch of weather. By the way, did you see the quote, the Will Hall quote?
I did.
I mean,
not wrong.
Right. Well, and here's the thing. Like, my thing is this. Like, what I don't have the exact quote, but he basically said, yes, we were thinking about the health of the players. Yes, we were thinking about the nutrition of the players. But we had to play the game to get the check. And the check, essentially, he said, is the most important thing. Now, was there ever a discussion that they wouldn't play? You know what I mean? That's if there was a discussion of, hey, man, you know, some guys might get hurt, or hey, these guys haven't eaten anything in 5 hours, 6 hours. But I don't think that was ever even in the discussion. So I don't think, like, I think the way it came across.
Yeah, it sounds worse
than
like what it was.
Getting the money is more important than the health of the players. I think what he meant was like, well, we were going to play the game anyway, but of course we were thinking about the health. Of course we were thinking about the nutrition. That's the way I think that was supposed to come across, but it didn't. And now Southern Miss fans, just because they've been losing, are gonna. That's what kills me, right? Is what a coach says. Whether the team's performing well or not is going to depend on how you take it. And I don't think that's fair. You know, Southern Miss has been pretty bad, and a lot of fans want him out of there. But that quote, not necessarily taken out of context, but a little bit. You have to read between the lines. You have to, you have to know. You don't know what he was exactly thinking. And I can promise you he was not telling you that getting the paycheck is more important than the health of the players. I get it. I get that's what he said, but let's be rational here. Right. Let's be rational. Let's look at things from take our emotions out of it. But they did get smoked. Georgia State, decent little showing at Georgia Tech. I mean, now, see, this is where you start finding things out, right? Now you're starting to find out, like, oh, that Georgia Tech beating Florida State wasn't that impressive, maybe. Yeah. And maybe they're not that good. But I will say this, just to tie this back to the Blue Raiders, Jeff. Georgia Tech has a guy that was on the middle O-line for the last couple of years, and the middle O-line has been terrible for the last, half a decade. And somehow he ends up at Georgia Tech and looks like a freaking star. So that, to me, tells me that it's I don't even want to say it's a coaching problem, because when I watch middle, it's like their communication up front is bad. When a defensive end comes into the B gap, like, guard's got to be there. Guard has to see that and kick the tackle out to block the blitz that's coming. But they're just not, like, I think it's like an IQ. I don't know if it's like a football IQ thing, or just they haven't seen it.
Experience. It's probably a combination.
Some real basic blitz and combinations that they are just not seeing, and it's been that, again, you're on another group, you're on a different coach, it's not happening. So what's happening? You know what I
mean? When does it get fixed? I mean, I don't have the answer to that. I hope they get it fixed over the next couple of weeks. They got a tough one in Ole Miss coming up, but just to go back to Georgia State real quick, can't give up 500 yards of total offense. I know it's Georgia Tech. The ground game is tough. But if you want to win games, you can't give up that much and offensively not be able to move the ball. So, but
Yep.
man, it's been a tough situation. He's coming in on kind of shorthand but to be in that game, I'm good with it. They're gonna continue to build and get better.
Yep. Louisiana, they did what they're supposed to do. 40-10 over Grambling. Grambling's a decent little program too now. So, and it looked from the pictures I saw, looked like a pretty good crowd showing out there in Lafayette, which has been an area of concern as of late. But so they need to keep showing up. There's only one team in Louisiana that didn't win over the weekend, just in case anybody was curious.
Mm-hmm.
So, boy, that guy's got problems, doesn't he? I mean, banging on the table like a child. What are you doing?
Just trying to show that he cares, Sprouse.
He's a fraud, dude. I've never seen a bigger fraud in the country than that guy. Never won anything either, by the way, just in case anybody was curious.
Him and DJ
paying
them
millions and millions and millions and buyouts. Texas State, I mean, having to hang on late against Lamar. I think that was a situation, they kind of thought they had it in the bag and let up a little bit. And then maybe looking forward to UTSA coming to town. But
again, it's a FCS team that's going to be fired up to play, and they showed up. And Texas State, had some issues at times, but they're going to be fine. I promise. You better believe Kenny's going to have them ready for next week.
Yeah, well,
Jordan McLeod looked good in his debut.
What's that? I
said Jordan McLeod looked good in his debut.
Yeah.
That was a question mark. We thought, how's he going to be in this offense? Coming from one system to a little bit different. He looked fine. He looked good.
Did you see that play? What's that receiver's name?
Joey Hobart.
Yeah, dude, where he was like
stopped on
like a small child about to like fall off of a balance thing and
then dove in the end zone. That was sick.
I was like, damn. Talk about a lack of pursuit to the ball from the defense, though. The guy's toe tapping for like 5 seconds.
Yeah.
And then he walks into the end zone. But we'll see. But anyway, guys, we'll be back with you tomorrow morning. And then Friday, it's probably going to be like around noon, I'm guessing. We'll figure out the details. A lot depends on flights and delays. And I mean, ain't no telling what's going to get delayed in travel these days, but rental car, all that stuff's happening on Friday morning. We're going to be down there on campus, doing some interviews, doing some facility tour, all that kind of stuff. And then Friday afternoon, we'll be floating the river. I mean, maybe we just go live from the river, Jeff.
I'd have to.
I don't know if we have that capability, but put the little box thing in a Ziploc bag and get the show on the road, pal. But no, anyway, man. Well, thank you guys for hanging out with us on this Tuesday morning. Hope you had a great Labor Day.
We got a ton of voicemails, but what we'll do is we'll pick those up tomorrow. We have 8 voicemails from the weekend. Awesome stuff. Awesome content. But we are running a little bit long with so many games to get to. So don't panic. We got all that great content coming tomorrow morning. So check out at the end of the show tomorrow. We'll have all the voicemails from the weekend.
Ain't no doubt about it. Well, thank you guys for watching and listening. Make sure you hit follow on all the social platforms at Group of Five Guys. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you are watching or listening. Catch you guys in the morning. We're out of here.